Hello everyone, Sir Joshua here. Welcome to the second session of our laboratory class for nursing informatics. This will be our second session for the prelims. So let's start with our second session. But before that, let's have some of the recap of what we have discussed the previous session. So we've discussed your computer hardware class, wherein your computer is generally described in terms of several major characteristics of its hardware. The speed is determined by how many cycles per second can be processed, the size of its main memory, its cache, and its hard drive. So all these factors combine to determine how many programs and data can be permanently stored on the hard drive and how fast the computer can run programs. So in turn, these factors determine what kinds of work the user can do with the computer. Also, class, we've discussed that the physical components of your computer itself and its peripheral hardware constitute the architecture of your computer. And these factors determine how it can be used. We've also discussed, class, that a great deal of work and playing on computers today involves interaction with other people and machines. Thus, multiple computers must be able to be connected or network with each other. And also, all the work performed and games played with computers require essential components. Like for example, it includes your motherboard, your printed circuits, your CPU, processors, memory chips, controllers, and other of your peripheral devices. Okay? So for reference, you may use these links and other books if you want to learn more on these concepts on computer hardware. Now, let's have, class, the lesson 2 of this module. We have now your computer software. So in this topic, we will learn about the 3 general types of your softwares, the computer languages, and the programs that the nurses commonly use. Okay? So without further ado, let's start. Computer software. So the software, magkita software, it is a kind of programs that enable a user to perform some specific task or used to operate a computer. So an example of the software was when I've presented to you the Access software sa aton orientation, okay, which is used in home healthcare settings. It also directs, class, all the peripheral devices on our computer system, what to do and how to perform your work. And your software is supplied as an organized instruction sets rather, called as your programs, or more typically as a set of related programs called as your package. So magamit kita software, class, it is the general term applied to the instructions that directed the computer's hardware to perform work. So it is distinguished from hardware by its conceptual rather than its physical nature. So software consists of instructions communicated electronically to the hardware. So from the software to the hardware. Tandaan ta, class, without your softwares, we cannot operate hardwares and perform any calculations. Now, let's have the 2 purposes of your computer software. Nga aming mga computer software kita, class. Number 1, it is needed to translate instructions created in human language into machine language. Kung kita nga mga tao, may mga language kita nga ato nga para maintindihan ta, ang computers, class, also have their machine language. Okay? Other purpose of your computer software, class, is needed to make the computer an economic work tool. Okay? Ginagamit na siya for work. So users could create their own software every time they needed to use your computer. Now, let's have, class, the history of your computers. So, konting throwback tayo with your computer software. In 1800s, Charles Babbage, a mathematician, invented a device that he called or he named as analytical machine. From the word itself, analytical, it analyzes. Okay, like this one. This is the analytical machine. So Babbage's son, ang iyang bata, finally built this machine in the 1910s. Okay, but was not able to make it work reliably. Okay, so however, the concept of the machine could perform mathematical functions stipulated the thinking of other scientists and mathematicians on how to build such. Okay, so this is your analytical machine. Also, class, we have Augusta Ada Byron, Countess Lovelace, the first programmer that theorized the use of your automatic repetitions, arithmetic steps that analytical engine would follow to solve a problem, which is known as your loop concept. Okay, that is why this concept or your loop concept class gave them the title as the first programmer. Next class is the development of your data processing machine that was taken from field of textiles. So Joseph Jacquard invented the Jacquard loom. So this one is your Jacquard loom. So this device uses block of woods, as you can see, made up of wood siya, with holes drilled in such a way that the threads to be woven into cloth could form a program. Okay, yung guaya daw parang sewing machine. So the instructions varied the way the cloth could form a program or set of instructions to the loom so that a particular design like flowers or animals would be produced in the fabric. Kumbaga, nagaano siya, embroider. Okay? So the weaved produced images without changing the thread color and type. Now, in 1881, we have Herman Hollerith, which used Jacquard's idea but developed a machine that could read punch cards and tabulate the results. Okay, so his ideas were successful that he formed a company known as your tabulating machine. Okay, this one is the tabulating machine. Okay, later known or later called as your IBM. Next is we have Grace Murray Hooper, the world's most expert programmer of the early computers. So she greatly advanced the power of computers through her innovation in computer programming and program languages. So this is Grace Murray Hooper. So she is considered class as the mother of computing. Okay? So nowadays, the internet and the network of networks might be viewed as a realization of Grace Hooper's early vision of computing. Tungod sa iya, no, we are enjoying the present usage of internet and networks. Now, let's have class the three types of your software. May tatlo kita class nga types of software. First is your system software that controls the operations of the machine, mostly built in. No? Next is we have your utility software that supports the efficiency, productivity, and the security sa ating computer. And lastly, we have the apps of your application software, wherein all the programs the user employs to do your work. Okay, so let's try to discuss these three different types class of our software. First, let's have your system software. So this kind of software class controls the operations of the machines and how it works, the peripheral equipments, and supports utility and application programs. Okay? So maghambal kita system software tools. It consists of variety of programs that control the individual computer and make the user's apps programs work well with the hardware. Okay? It consists of programs that initializes or boots up your computer when it is first turned on and thereafter controls all the function. Okay, so it will also help speed up and expand the power of your computer class. So when multiple programs are running together, the hard drive manages it and performs your management tasks. So we have here, class, your two types or two basic types of your system software. We have your BIOS or your basic input-output system, and we have your OS, ang ginatawag na OS or your operating system. Maghambal kita, class, BIOS, it handles the first level of system control, and it is stored on a ROM chip or your ROM, if you can still remember. So it is stored on a ROM chip on your motherboard. So it first searches for an OS, no? Ginapangita yang OS, and then loads it into the random access memory or aton nga RAM. Okay, so from the ROM chip or ROM chip sa motherboard, it searches your OS or the operating system, and then it loads it sa imo nga RAM or RAM or random access memory. Next is we also have, class, your OS or operating system. So it is the actual software that is loaded from your hard drive into the RAM. Okay, as soon as the computer is turned on. Again, it is loaded from hard drive into RAM. Okay, or your RAM or random access memory. Once nga gin-turn on mo na ang imo nga computer. Now, here are some of the important features of your system software. So your system software is closer to the system. Lapit gid siya sa functioning of your computer or the system itself. So generally, it is written in low-level language. Okay? Since it is written in a low-level language, class, the system software is difficult to design and understand. Okay? So it is fast in speed. Again, kay lapit siya sa system itself, so dasig ang iyang speed. It is less interactive and smaller in size. And also, class, it is hard to manipulate. Now, let's have the next kind of your type of your software, which is your utility software. So, utility software, class, supports your efficiency, productivity, and security of your system software and the applications programs. So as you can see there in the picture, so this includes the following. So we have your algorithms, your file manager tool, your compression tool, your disk management tool, your cleanup tool, your disk defragmenter, and your security programs such as your antivirus. Okay? So, ang ato ni class nga utility software analyzes and maintains your computer. Okay? So, it is designed to enhance the function of your operating system or perhaps to add the facilities that the basic operating system does not offer. Okay? And it performs tasks to enable the smooth functioning of your computer. So, sa madaling salita, pinapabilis niya yung function ng iyong computer. Okay? So, nagtagalog na si Sia. Okay. Now, let's try to discuss or see what are these tools included in your utility software. First, let's have your file management tool. So, this software, class, is used to manage your files stored in a file system. Arabla kung may mga files kada automatic siya record or nagaka-save sa amo nga file system. Okay? Like for example, sa aton nga Windows, we have your file manager or your file explorer. In your Mac OS or your OS, no, we have your OS Finder. We also have your directory Opus 12 like this one, and we have your Dolphin in KDE. Next is we have your compression tool. From the word itself, compression, it compresses your files. So these tools are used to reduce the size of a file based on the selected algorithm. So most of our OS class include these tools for compressing and uncompressing files. Okay? We have, for example, here your WinAce, your 7-zip, your WinZip, your WinRAR, and your PKZip. Okay? For example, may mga files ka mga dagko-dagko, ipang-compress na tanan into zip files like this one. So, para ma-open ta naman siya, we use to extract it or extraction yung mga tools naman. Sometimes, if you have downloaded zip files with passwords or lock, medyo budlay na siya i-open. Next is we have class your disk management tool. So this one class manages the drives installed in your computer, like hard disk drives, your flash drives. Okay, it can be used to partition your drives, assign the drive letters, and much more. Okay, so for example, we have here your mini tool partition wizard, like this one, or we have also your Paragon partition disk manager. So as you can see na, himuan niya partition or drives. Okay, like this one. We also have your ECUS partition master. We also have your smart monitoring tools and your AOMEI partition assistant, or your AO main partition assistant. We also have your disk cleanup tool. Okay, so it is computer utility maintenance, which is included in your Microsoft Windows. So it allows your user to remove the files that are no longer needed or that can be safely deleted. So sa madaling salita, it is your cleaner. Okay? For example, your IOLO system, mechanic, we have your IOBit advanced system care. So this one in the picture, we have your Peripharmacy cleaner. Okay? And we also have your Razer Cortex. I usually use this one, disk defragmenter. So your disk defragmenter naman class is a utility in Microsoft Windows designed to increase the access speed by rearranging your file stored on a disk to occupy the contiguous storage locations. Ginapamag-anya bala ang mga files nga mga, for example, gin-trash mo na, ginhaboy mo na, no? No gina-empty agad ka tama, kag dasig ang iyang speed after that one. So this one is ginagamit ko your Oslogix disk defragmenter. We have also your MyDefrag, we have your Perfect Disk, and your Deflaggler. And lastly, we have your antivirus. So as far as I remember, ang mga nagamit ko pa lang here is your Kaspersky, we have your AVG, and your McAfee. Okay, so your antivirus, of course, from the word itself, it protects your computer from the virus. So it detects the virus and notifies the user and take action to secure the computer. So as of the moment, I am using your 360 Total Security, which is free when I bought this device. Yeah. So again, from system software, we have your utility software, and now let's have the third one, which is your application software, or simply your apps. Yan. So it includes various programs people used to do work, process data, or play games, or communicate with others, or to watch multimedia programs on your computer. Okay, so your apps or your application programs class are written in a particular programming language. So as you can see there in the picture, those are the examples of your apps, both located in your PCs, your tablets, your iPads, and your mobile devices. So your apps or your application software class is a program that does real work for the user. Ito talaga yung ginagamit ng users. Okay, so it is mostly created to perform a specific task for a user. So you can also install multiple apps on a single system software. So you can store this kind of software on CDs, DVDs, flash drive, or kitchen storage devices. Okay? So what are the important features of your apps or your application software? So it performs more specialized tasks like your word processing, spreadsheets, email, and photo editing. Okay? So, for example, your Microsoft Teams, which is used for the communication, di ba? We have your browser, your browsers or your Google browsers, and then we use your websites such as Facebook for communication, no? Next is that it needs more storage space as it is bigger in size. Okay? Especially when you have your apps that are for games. Example are your ML, di ba? Dako-dako ang storage yung ginakaon niya sa imo nga mobile devices, no? Next is that it is easy to design and more interactive to the user, especially with mobile apps that are simply your games that are online RPG, wherein you can communicate with your co-players. And we have generally written in a high level language. Okay. So your apps class have different types pagid ang ato niya application software. Number one, we have your word processing software. Of course, this is used for creating, modifying, viewing, storing, retrieving, and printing documents. Like your Microsoft Word, di ba? Next is we have your spreadsheet software wherein we can read your Excel files, no? So it is a numeric data analysis tool that allows you to create computerized ledger. We also have your database software. So it is a collection of related data that is stored and retrieved according to users' demands. We also have your graphics software. Okay, so allows your computer system for creating, editing, drawing, and your graphs. Let's just say your Paint, your Adobe Lightroom, okay, your Photoshop. Next is we have your education software. Let's just say for your Microsoft Teams, okay? So education software that allows a computer to be used for learning and teaching tool, okay, such as your PowerPoint also. And we have your entertainment software, which is a type of app that allows you to have to use entertainment tools, YouTube, for example. Okay? So those are the examples or the types of your application software or your apps software. Now, you might get confused on the difference of your system software and your apps na software. Now, let's try to compare these two. So system software are designed to manage the resources of the system. Like for example, your memory, your process management, security. Whereas your application software are designed to fulfill the requirements of the user for performing specific tasks. So system software works in general, while your apps is more specific. Okay? Next, the system software is a general purpose like what I've said a while ago lang gid, no? And your apps is more specific purpose. Your system software is written in a low-level language like a machine or assembly language. So usually mga binary numbers na siya, no? Ang sa system software natin. In your apps, of course, it is used as a high-level language to write application software. So mas maintindihan ta ni siya. System software is capable of running independently. Pag paandar mo sa computer, gaandar lang na siya automatic. While your apps can run independently. Pwera na lang kung iset mo siya nga ma-auto-open siya upon opening your program or computer. Next, your system software starts running when the system is powered on and runs until the system is powered off. Okay? Kung pandaron mo ang imong laptop or device mo, maandar na siya, kung patyon mo na, mapatay man siya. So your app software naman starts when the user begins and it ends when the user stops it. Like for example, nakapoy ka na diya gamit sa YouTube, i-exit mo lang na yan. Exit na siya. Stop ang imong application software. But your system software continues to work samtang open dahil na imong screen, sang imong tablet or imong computer. And also lastly, we have your system software are independent of the application software. While the application software needs system software to run. Okay? Biskan open ba ang system software mo kung wala na yung apps mandar na Japon. Pero kinahanglan gid Japon sang apps naton ang system software para mabuhi siya. Dira siya kumbaga maungot. Okay? So that is the difference of your system and your application software. Now, let's have class your programming languages. Yan. Programming languages wherein a computer cannot naturally understand the human language. So based on the picture, no, makita ta may mga code, no? So that is called as your machine language. More English-like languages have been developed to facilitate the programming. Kung mga computer programming, ikaw, no, you have the knowledge on how to use those computer languages there. So in addition, you will learn that a computer cannot naturally understand the human language. So the language of the computer is a machine language, and it is understandably very difficult to programmers. So therefore, more English-like languages have been developed to facilitate your programming, wherein as languages become more English, no, they are described in terms of levels. Okay, kung nagabudlay, ang iyang language, tawag na siya is levels. And the higher the level class, the more English-like the language is. Okay? So the various languages allows your programmers to develop programs to meet many needs of both the workplace and your personal users. Now let's have your programming languages. So a programming language class is a vocabulary and set of grammatical rules for instructing a computer or computing device to perform specific tasks. So the term programming language usually refers to high-level language. Okay? So there are 5 generations of programming languages class, sometimes divided into 3 levels. We have your first level, which includes your first generation language, or your 1GL, or also called as your machine language, and includes your second generation language, or your 2GL, or your assembler language. Second level class, we include there your 3GL, or your third generation language, or also known as your procedural language. We have your fourth generation language, or your 4GL, or your high-level procedural language. And we have your third level, which includes the fifth generation of languages, or your 5GL, which includes the natural language, or your visual programming language. So let's try to check the differences between or among these languages. Now, let's have first your 1GL, or your machine language. So first generation language was machine language, or the level of instructions and data that the processor is actually given to work on binary numbers, such as your zeros and your ones. So usually made up of your numbers. So first generation language, or your 1GL, is the lowest level computer language. Okay? So the information is conveyed to the computer by the programmer as your binary instructions. So in the 1940s and 50s, these computers were programmed by the scientists sitting before the control panels, equipped with toggle switches so that they could input instructions as strings of zeros and ones. Tandaan talang class, machine language, or your 1GL, uses binary instructions or binary numbers. Next, 2GL, or your assembler language. So your 2GL, or your second generation language, used assembly language. So an assembler converts the assembler language statements into machine language. Kumbaga, from 2GL to 1GL. Okay? So by the late 50s, this language had become popular. So assembly language consists of the letters of the alphabet na. Kagina, 0 and 1 lang, subong may alphabets na. So this makes the program much easier than trying to program your zeros and ones. And your 2GL use your 2GL use increased language when the Grace Hopper developed your Flowmatic. So remember in the history a while ago regarding Grace Hopper, no? She was the mother of computing nga ginatawag kagina. So she developed the Flowmatic, wherein this is a language that made programming easier. From numbers, it includes now your alphabets. Now, after the assembler language is the development naman of your procedural language or your 3GL. So it is a high-level programming language such as your PL, we have your COBOL, your Fortran, and your C. So compiler-based Fortran and COBOL created because it improved the record-keeping and data management ability in many business apps. So in the 60s, basic language designed and used by non-professional programmers. BASIC remained popular during the 70s and 80s. And the programs written in your 3GL or your third generation language require more memory and run more slowly. So mas dako ang language scope niya wherein it needs more storage na. Okay? So remember class that your procedural language or your 3GL require the programmer to specify both what computer needs to do and the procedure on how to do it. Okay? So that is your third generation or your 3GL. Now, we also have class your 4GL or your fourth generation, or also called as the high-level procedural language. So in your 4GL class, it is designed to be closer to your natural language than a 3GL. Mas kumbaga mas huluhapos na siya intindihon. So fourth generation language attempt to make communicating with computers as much like the processes of thinking and talking to other people as possible. So in your fourth generation language typically conceals English-like words. Okay, may mga words na gid yang ara dira sa ilang interpretation sa atong computer language. So it includes class your graphic devices such as your icons. Okay, nagkaroon na tayo ng icons, mga push buttons in using or for the use during the programming and when running your apps. So many 4GL languages use your C, your C2+, your Java, and your SQL that support standalone as well as web applications. So sa madaling salita class, in your 4GL, the user specifies what the program is to do but not how because it is already programmed by the manufacturer of the program language. Okay, again, the user specifies what the program is to do, ano himuon sang program, but not how because it is already programmed by the manufacturer. Okay. We also have your 5GL or your natural and visual programming language or your fifth generation. So your 5GL or your fifth generation language is programming that uses visual or graphical development interface to create source language that is usually compiled with your 3GL or your 4GL. So for example, your Microsoft, your Borland, your IBM, and other companies make 5GL visual programming products for developing your apps, such as your Java, your J2+, okay, and so on and so forth. So your visual programming allows you to see objects or object-oriented structures and drag icons to assemble program blocks. So in simple terms, your 5GL the user tells the machine on what to do in the user's own natural language or through the use of English-like command. Okay, kung meaning niya, yung worded commands for that one. Mas hapos na siya intindihon. Okay. So that is your different languages or different programming languages that we have in your in the use of your computers. Now, let's have class the common software used by the nurses. Okay? So, programs, okay, are available in workplaces to assist your nurses. So, for nurses class, there are a large number of programs class available in many workplaces to support your charting. For example, interpreting your waveforms such as your heart rhythms and breathing rhythms. You're controlling your IV drip rates, diba? Sa aton hospitals. The calculation of your drug dosages and many other work functions. Computing and software have become pervasive in nurses' lives and are tools that nurses use every day to provide high-quality nursing care services. So as a nurse, it is important to learn about software, computer languages, as well as programs used in the clinical setting. Okay? So here are class some of the useful softwares that usually use sa mga nurses. We have here your ADT systems. ADT is also known as your admission, discharge, and transfer system. You're right there. Admission, discharge, and transfer system. So this is used to help tracking of our patients. Ang taon-ta kung naka-discharge ang pasyente or nakapuli na. Okay, this is your ADT systems. We also have your MAR, okay, or your medication administration record. Okay, medication administration record. So this will help the nurses if what medications are to be given or due to be given, your medications that are for renewal, and medications that are new, ang mga bago nga order ni doktor makit-an tada kung anong oras na siya ipainom sa pasyente. That is your MAR. Next, we also have your charting software. Of course, it computerizes all the procedures or nurses' records. Like for example, what we've seen in the orientation, the access software, dira na lang naga-chart tanan nga nurses, hapos ang access dira. We also have your CPOE. Magamba kita CPOE, that is your computer physician order entry. From the word itself, computer physician order entry, doctor's orders. Okay? We also have your radiologic and lab, our laboratory results, no? Or your radiology and lab orders. Usually, it has the reports for the results of this departments. For example, mga labs, mga x-rays, dira na siya tanan. We also have class your chat rooms wherein multiple nurses can send and receive messages. At the same time, some requires password to enter and some is open to the public. We also have your electronic bulletin board. So this is called as your discussion board wherein it creates space where users can post messages, reactions, with some topics posted or sharing of insights. Kumbaga do ka Microsoft Teams na siya class nga tanan ka mo maka-post, maka-comment. Okay? And last, we have your listservs. Maka-listserv class, the same as your electronic mailing. If somebody posted on the EBB, automatically everyone on the list or all the members will receive the email. Do parehas ba siya class sa Microsoft Teams? Di ba kung mag-post ka lang sa Microsoft Teams or may i-post si teacher nga assignment, automatic man send sa aton nga Outlook. Amo man na siya sa aton sa nurses. So we have your electronic bulletin board as your Teams and your listserv as your Outlook for the emails. Okay, mostly your notifs or notifications. So these are the common software used by the nurses. Okay? Now, let's have the system life cycle. Okay? So the system life cycle class is the tasks that multiple disciplines must accomplish to produce technically sound, regulatory compliant, and user-friendly system. Okay? So it supports safe, effective, and efficient patient care delivery. So your SLC class sa system life cycle, sa paggamit natin sang systems, may ara kita 4 major phases. We have your planning, we have your analysis, we have your design, wherein we develop and customize, and we also have your implementation, evaluation, and your support and maintain. Okay? So as you can see here, 5 na siya pero 4 na siya. May naga-combine na dira. So let's try to discuss these different phases sa paggamit naton sang systems. Okay? First phase class of your SLC is your planning. Okay? So the planning phase determines the problem scope and outlines the entire program. Okay? So project governance structure, for example. Okay? Samtang nagaplano kita nga magamit sang aton nga systems, no? First, it includes, for example, your project governance structure. Sa project governance structure class, the clinical leadership of your organization is highly involved in the establishment of the committee structure. So your organization's strategic goals and priorities must be reviewed and considered. We also have here, class, your definition of the project's goals and purpose. So this one, class, is essential and often not readily apparent, not until the information requirements of the project or the stated goal or your outcomes are precisely defined, will the real characteristics of the requirements be revealed. We also have, class, your feasibility study. Okay? Kumbaga sa aton nga pagplano, we have to have your feasibility study wherein we do your preliminary analysis. Okay, to determine if the problem or the proposed problem can be solved by the implementation of your electronic health records or component applications. So the feasibility study not only clarifies the problem or stated goals, but also helps with the identifying of your information needs, your objectives, your scope of the project. So it also helps your committee understand the real problem and the goal by analyzing multiple parameters by presenting your possible solutions. So sa planning naton, samtang nagaplano kita, we also do your environmental assessment class. Magambal kita environmental assessment. So the project is being defined in terms of the support it provides to both the mission and the strategic plans of your organizations. So the impact of legal, regulatory, and ethical considerations is being reviewed. Gina-review natin kung ang paggamit ng system is ethical. Okay? We also have, class, your scope of the proposed system and timeline, wherein we try to establish the system constraints and the outlines what the proposed system will and will not produce. So it includes the scope that are the criteria by which the success of the project will be judged. Kumbaga sa planning phase nato naga-include gini ang ini nga mga activities. After we do our planning, class, we have to analyze na. So we have your second phase or the analysis. So the fact-finding phase, the analysis phase, assesses the problem being studied through extensive data gathering. So all data needs related to the requirements are defined in the project scope agreement developed in this phase. So we have here the key documents created in this phase. Kung nag-analyze kita, anong ginahimo naton? First, we have your gap analysis. So we try to compare what is available in the current process and what is desired in the new system. We also have there your technical requirements for hardware, software, networks. We have your functional design document, system proposal document. So tandaan talang, class, that during the analysis, we have to follow the following steps. Number one is we try to collect data reflecting the existing problem or your goal. So two important documents are created as a result of data collection. First, we have the creation of your workflow document for each major goal or for each problem to be resolved. So the second is the functional design document outlining how the new system will resolve the identified goals or your problems. So once nakakollect na ta data, we try to analyze it on our second step. Okay? So analysis of data, or our second step, we provide the data for the development of an overview of the clinical requirements or the goals defined in a project scope agreement. Number 3, and lastly, we have to review your data. So review the data collected in the feasibility study, the workflow documents, and the functional specification, and we provide recommendations to the project committee. So once nakaplano na, okay, planning, and then followed by analysis, we now go with the design, development, and customization. Okay, so this is the third phase of your system life cycle. So the design details to develop the system and the detailed plans for implementing and evaluating the system. So it evolves for both technical and functional components. Next is we have your policies and procedures that are reviewed and updated. Kung sa ato nga mga system subong may mga naglain dira nga policies, no? Gina-update na siya in your third phase. Okay? So we try to reflect the use of your new apps or your new application or systems in the delivery of care. Like for example, from the dinaan nga charting, no? We try to use automated or computerized based nga mga chartings. So from that computerized based systems, we try to update kung may mga bago naman on the usage of that technology or that specific app or software. So thorough testing of the new system and detailed plans are executed. So training focuses on the use of your system. Okay? And lastly, class. After ta na design sang aton or development or customize ang aton nga system, we now implement and evaluate and maintain and support. The preparation class of the documents to describe the system for all users is an ongoing activity. So implementation outlines the detailed plans for moving the new system into the production or live environment. So gina-prepare natin mga documents natin dira. I-implementa na kung anong naplano ta nga mga ipaguhon sa system nga gamiton naton. Also class, the documentation should begin with the final system proposal. So we try to evaluate the system, or evaluating the system determines the positive and the negative results of the implementation effort and suggest ways to improve the system. And lastly class, manuals are prepared. Kung anong pinangbago ta to sa system nga gingamit ta sa computer, we try to prepare your manuals for the distribution and during your training. Okay? So upgrading the system involves the expansion and elaboration of the initial functions. So that is the phases of our system life cycle. Kung paano kita magamit sa ating systems and how we try to update this system in a cyclical manner. Okay? So I think that was a long due of our discussion. It's quite long, but I hope you have learned something from the discussion. Anyways, thank you so much for listening. I hope you have learned something from the discussion. Don't forget to hit the like and subscribe button on this channel. And please follow the instructions provided to you on our channel provided, okay, for the laboratory. Thank you so much and have a great day. Bye.